Well, here we are. Welcome everyone to the new Bravo 22 live programs and YouTube channel. It's great to have you all here with us. So who are we? We are the Bravo 22 company, which is a recovery through the arts program made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive project. Our aim is to use the arts to give to certain people, their families, veterans, and the wider community new skills, experiences, building their confidence and self-esteem. So make sure you like us and you subscribe to the YouTube channel and pass it out there. Get it out to our community, the wider society. It's all here for them. Right, today's first session in our program is over the next few weeks, we're going to have, and months possibly, we're going to have, be bringing you arts programs filled with workshops, classes, and talks covering a wide spectrum from the creative world. Understanding and critiquing works of art, meeting professionals from the arts industry, exploring artists at their home studios, and my passion, watching and reviewing online theatre. Right, there's links at the end here, which you'll be able to sort of access the RSC and different sort of theatre links as well, and any other quizzes or things that you want to get answered can be done. So we are here for you, yeah? Technology has allowed us to connect or reconnect in some cases, which is good to meet you all. And again, it gives us proper magic in our homes. The whole package may not be your cup of tea, but come along for the ride. There'll be stacks of banter and crack the whole way along. My name is Tip Cullen. I'm a Bravo 22 company member. I'm here in the sunny southwest of England. I'm an actor, and for my sins, I was a former Royal Marines commando for 30 years. I got my first chance in theatre with Bravo 22 company when I performed at the Theatre Royal in Plymouth in the play Boots at the Door, which was an incredible adventure. Just as a reminder then, Guy, if you've got any messages or quizzes that you want asked, you can get involved here by clicking on the link, which is the live chat button to your right of the screen. We'll try and answer it. If we can't answer it, we will direct you to some people that will be able to answer it as such. Our sessions will be running Tuesday and Thursday every week. I know it's Wednesday, but bear with me. So Tuesday and Thursday each week at 1100 hours to 11:30 hours. That's 11 to 11:30 a.m. for all those who don't habla. So like I said, we are here for you. Our first session today is being delivered by the brilliant Kate Beales. Kate is a theatre director and a legend of the National Theatre as such. We were supposed to be going this weekend over to Northern Ireland to create a performance of Romeo and Juliet with the intrepid and strong company in Northern Ireland of Bravo 22. Since that can't happen, we're going to ask you all to get yourself in that atmosphere. Come and get amongst it. We're now with Romeo and Juliet. Kate will be introducing the story, and we really hope that wherever you are, you'll be joining in and performing alongside her. We'll be asking you to shout out, to act out, and also maybe even do some live, write some poetry. I love poetry. I can do that. Again, any quizzes or any points or thoughts, please put them on the live chat. We can do that. Without any further ado then, let's welcome, Bravo 22 gives a big, massive welcome to Kate Beales. Hello, Kate.
Hello, Tip, and thank you so much. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Romeo and Juliet, Bravo 22 style. Now, when Bravo asked me to do this, I started thinking about what does it mean to make theatre? And I thought there are two things we kind of need to make theatre. One is some interaction. We need performers and we need an audience. And I'm going to need you, otherwise it won't work. The other thing we need, it's really important in the theatre, is something that we call the suspension of disbelief. And that's the thing that means that we know that even though it's not real, we can enjoy it, we can feel it, we can believe it, we can cry, we can laugh. We accept that however fake the situation is, we're going to get into the story and we're going to go with it. And it seems to me that we need that more than ever right now, because we're not all together in an auditorium and a stage. We're all in separate places, but we're all going to make a piece of theatre together. So I'm here to ask you to suspend your disbelief and get involved. And we're going to tell the first section of the story of Romeo and Juliet this week. Next week, I'll tell you a bit more. Third week, I'll finish the story. If you already know the story, great, then you can join in. If you don't know the story, great, you'll find it out as we go along. So, Romeo and Juliet. It's the story of two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, Italy, where we lay our scene. Now, two households, that's where it starts. Two separate households, both alike in dignity, both equally grand and dignified. Do me a favour. I'm going to say two letters, C and M. Pick one. If you've picked the letter C, then you are a member of the Capulet household, one of the grandest, greatest and most dignified households in Verona. If you picked the letter M, you're a member of the Montague household, and they are just as good. They are as grand, as dignified, and as great. Now, I'm going to ask you to help me out here. Imagine that you're going to take a selfie of yourself as one of these grand households. If you're a Capulet, could you just pose for a photograph in which you are as dignified as it's possible to be? And Tip, I'm going to ask you right now to just do that as well. Tip, over to you to be super dignified. Thank you. And if you are in fact from the other household, could you be even more dignified, because you're always better than them? If you're a Montague, you're better still. So yeah, there we go, Tip. You're going to have to do something even bigger. Yay, thank you. So dignified. But as well as dignified, you are also extremely proud. So whether you're a Capulet or a Montague, can you just show me how proud it's possible to be? I'm looking at Tip there, and he is astoundingly proud. And let's go for another one, which is powerful. You are not only dignified and not only proud, but you have power. Let's see it. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you have to know that as far as both these households are concerned, they are the richest, the greatest, the proudest, the most dignified, and the most powerful. And it is a constant source of infuriation and frustration to each of them that the other thinks the same. Because, of course, you know, if you're a Capulet, you know the Montagues aren't as good as you. And if you're a Montague, you know the Capulets aren't as good as you. You just know that. Now, we don't even know why these two households hate each other so much. It's all so long ago in the past, we don't know where it started. All we know is that there is an ancient grudge between them. And that from this ancient grudge, in the city, they break into new mutiny. They fight each other. And through this new mutiny, civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Blood on their hands when there's no reason. And here's why. Because if ever a Capulet goes out into the streets of the city and runs into a Montague, or if ever a Montague is just expecting to go out to the shops and runs into a Capulet, it always ends in trouble. They see each other and they make trouble. Now, it just happens that the beginning of the story is about exactly that. It's about some Capulets from the Capulet household out on their business, doing whatever they do in the streets of Verona, running into some Montagues. And when they see each other, the first thing they do is they insult each other with a rude gesture. Now, I'm sure you're all fine for rude gestures. I'm sure you know plenty. But this is one that they would have used in Verona at the time. It's called biting your thumb at someone, and it looks like this. Okay, I'm going to ask everyone just to imagine that you are facing someone from that household. Yeah, Tip's ready. And I'm going to ask you, Tip, and everyone else to bite your thumbs. Ready? Go. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Try it one more time, just for the sheer fun of it. exactly. It feels quite insulting, doesn't it? So a Montague comes around the corner, sees a Capulet, and immediately bites his thumb. And the Capulet says, do you, sir, bite your thumb at me, sir? And the Montague's like, whoa, I better not say that because it might not be legal for me to have done that to him. So he says, no, sir, no, I don't bite my thumb at you, sir. But I do bite my thumb, sir. And of course, immediately after that, everything kicks off because they're biting thumbs at each other and they're shouting insults. I'm going to give you some insults too, because I fully trust that you know loads, but I'm going to give you some Shakespearean insults to just shout out wherever you are. Hope your neighbours won't mind. And Shakespeare's play, Romeo and Juliet, is full of insults. Loads of people in the story are really rude to each other. I've picked up some insults from all over the play, which you could use for now. And I've put them on a board so you can see them. Look, here we go. Have fun with these. Dishclout, princox, villain, rogue, braggart, or tallow face. That means you've got like a yellow face like wax. So pick one of those, just one, and shout it aloud. Tip, go ahead, you shout one out for me.
Dishclout, tallow face.
Brilliant. So pick one, pick the one you like the best, and what we're going to do is this. We're going to bite thumbs and then just shout out your insult and do what Tip did. Make it as physical as you feel like, you know, you can hiss it, you can spit it, you can shout it at the top of your voice and add an action that goes with that. Okay? So ready? We're going to bite thumbs first and then dishclout. Go Tip.
Dishclout, tallow face.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, and of course, once the insults have kicked off, there's no going back. Before we know it, everybody's in the square, fighting all over the place, kicking off, the swords are up, everybody's shouting and screaming. I'm going to pause there just for a second. Imagine.
Yeah, good time, Kate. We've got a few quizzes for you. One of them is from Alice. Did Shakespeare base these families on ones he knew at the time?
That is such a great question. He actually did. Shakespeare read very widely. And this is an old Italian story that he'd read. And he based the families on that story. But he probably, like any writer, also borrowed from people he knew and, you know, kind of used the characterization from people he'd seen around in the world.
And did Shakespeare himself then, this is from Heather, she asked, did Shakespeare invent these insults?
Yeah, Shakespeare's really good at making up words. In fact, there are loads and loads of words in the dictionary today that were coined for the very first time by Shakespeare. They're in his plays and now they've gone into the language.
I know, and I've got a message here from Matt Whiteman, who's an extremely rude character anyway, and he says his favourite is braggart, but that's probably because he is one. And Luke Delahanty's obviously passed a little message on saying, is Tip channeling his inner Harry Potter? I can do Harry Potter, but we're on Shakespeare. Over to you, Kate.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so bring on the Harry Potter, bring on the insults, whatever you want. And imagine now that it has all kicked off, all over Verona, everybody's fighting, everyone's in there. Now the nobles, they would have their swords out, but even the servants, even the people who didn't have a sword, they'd be out there with pots and pans and broomsticks or just their bare hands, and they are all fighting and screaming. And into the middle of this comes a young man. You may be thinking Romeo, but it's not. It's a friend of Romeo's, and it's somebody from the Montague household. His name is Benvolio. He's a gentle soul, Benvolio. He's a peacekeeper, and he is horrified by what he sees. And he runs among the crowd, shouting, "Part, fools! Put up your swords." Not down, but put up your swords. So it's up like that, so that, you know, obviously you can't fight with it if it's up. "Put up your swords. You know not what you do. Stop." And people are starting to pay attention and listen to this young man. But as he's running among the crowd, a voice comes from behind him. And the voice says, "Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death." And as Benvolio turns, he is confronted by the meanest, most vicious of the Capulets, the man who hates Montagues above all other. And his name is Tybalt. And Benvolio sees Tybalt and his heart's going to sink at that moment because he knows there's going to be trouble. And Benvolio says, Tybalt, I do, just keep the peace. Help me to part these fools. But Tybalt laughs and he says, peace, I hate the word, as I hate all the Montagues, and you, Benvolio. And he draws his sword. And Benvolio, maybe even Tip, could you be Benvolio? I'm going to swap sides. And Tybalt is there exactly with his sword, and Benvolio has no choice but to fight back, because otherwise Tybalt would just kill him, and we know that Tybalt is fully capable of that. Thank you, Tip. And just as everybody's now parting to watch all these young men, and they're starting to take sides, and in fact, if you're a Capulet, can you just shout out now, down with the Montagues, wherever you are, I can hear you, go. Down with the Montagues.
Down with the Montagues.
Thank you, Tip. And if you are, in fact, Montague, you're not settling for that, you're going to shout, down with the Capulets. Ready, go.
Down with the Montagues.
You got it. Thank you. I hope you all did that. I feel like I could hear you. And just as everything is at absolute height, and it really looks like trouble for Benvolio, into the city arrives the Prince of Verona with his own police force, his guards. And everybody, whoa, in that moment, everyone has to drop their sword. Everyone has to stand like, oh my gosh, maybe they even drop to the floor, kneel. And the prince is furious. And the prince says, rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, if ever you disturb my streets again, your lives will pay the forfeit. On pain of death, all men depart. And everybody slinks away, knowing that they're in big trouble. And if they get caught fighting again, it's going to be death. Their lives will pay the forfeit, and they will pay. So the prince has kind of kept the peace for now. Tip, I'm going to check in with you. Any questions, any thoughts about what we just did?
Just one, and obviously, I think a lot of people do like profanities as such. So Neil Dennehy has asked, is the word braggart adapted into the Irish blackguard?
Oh, Neil, thank you. What a great question. Do you know what? I don't know, but I bet it is. Shakespeare played around with syllables and sounds, and also because he wrote by hand and then his plays were copied by hand, sometimes the spellings got mixed up, or sometimes you just couldn't quite read the handwriting. So that is perfectly possible. I'd love to have heard you, Neil, shouting that out. I hope you were yelling blackguard for us there. That's a brilliant question. Thank you.
No worries. Carry on.
Thank you, Tip. So we've been talking a lot about all this fighting in the square. Romeo actually says in the story that this story is much about hate, but more about love. And we're going to turn from the hate bit now to think a little bit about the other side of the story, the love. But before we do, I'd just like you to think about this whole story. It's about love and it's about hate. Much about hate, but more about love. Could you help me out by making some kind of gesture and face and image that's about hate? What does it look like? I'm going to look to Tip here for this. What does it look like? Show me hate, Tip. Brilliant, thank you. And now could you show me love? A good Shakespearean gesture of love. I'm going to look at Tip. I hope everyone is doing this. And now, because this is a play about both, can you show me love and hate in the same expression, the same gesture, the same movement? Go on, Tip, do your worst. And everybody else, yay, thank you. So it's a play that's much about hate and more about love, somehow contained together. And we know, because of the title, that there has to be some love in this story somewhere. But right now, it's not quite going that way. Lord Capulet, the father of the lovely Juliet Capulet, is planning a party because he would like Juliet to meet a young man to marry. Now, of course, there's no way ever on this earth that he would allow Juliet to marry a Montague. But he's got someone in mind for Juliet, and it is Count Paris, a cousin of the Prince of Verona. Very well connected, very handsome, very, very rich. And Lord Capulet's having a really grand party to introduce the two of them. And Juliet's fine with that. You know, she's up for the idea of meeting him. He sounds all right. So Paris is the guest of honor at the party, and Juliet is preparing to meet him. And she's assuming that, you know, if things go well, he'll probably be her husband. Now, of course, Lord Capulet is going to invite anybody who's anybody to this party. All the great and good and grand of Verona will be there. But we know who won't be there, right? No Montagues. But Romeo Montague, he really wants to go to this party. And the reason he wants to go to the party is that he's quite in love right now. He's in love with a young woman connected to the Capulets, whose name is Rosaline. Yeah, Romeo is totally in love with Rosaline at the start of the story. So he's trying to work out how he can get to this party. And the good news is he's got a friend who is connected to the prince, who's got nothing to do with either the Capulets or the fight. And this young man's name is Mercutio. Mercutio has an invitation because he's connected to, he's a cousin of Paris and he's a cousin of the prince, and he's got nothing to do with Montagues by blood, although he is a mate of Romeo's. So Romeo's hoping that Mercutio will take him to the party as his +1. And that is going to work because it's a masked ball. So Romeo can go in disguise. No one ever need know that he is a Montague. And he can try and meet the fair and lovely Rosaline. I'm going to stop there for a second to check in with Tip. Any questions, Tip, or how are we doing?
You have one of the, you know, this has got to be straight to the point. Do you have a favourite Shakespeare play?
Oh, woo, okay. It depends on my mood. I really love this play, but I think it's very, very hard to do well because it's been done so many times and we all have preconceptions about it. I particularly love, if I'm feeling like tragedy, I really, really love King Lear. I think that's an amazing play. And if I'm feeling kind of like I want comedy, I really love Twelfth Night, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous comedy. And in fact, they've got things in common, King Lear and Twelfth Night, but one of them ends really badly and the other one ends happily.
It's the same with me. I love Shakespeare, but for me, I'm a comedies man. And for me, it does change, but at the minute, it's The Merry Wives, which is a classic.
Lovely.
So I do love it.
Yeah.
But please, go on.
That's a really good choice. It's a more unusual choice as well.
And the other one, I've got to give a quick shout out to Bravo 22 company members. That's Neil Dennehy, Dean Williams, Luke Delahunty, and Matt Whiteman, all members who are watching us now, watching you now. So please give it all.
Oh, it's great to know that you're out there. I wish I could see you guys. It's lovely to know you're there. And I really hope that you are acting along with all of this, because it's nearly time to get towards the kind of love scenes and all of that. We don't have much time left in this session, by the way, so some of that's going to move into the next session. So, as we know, Romeo is heading to the party and Juliet is heading to the party. And we also know that this is not a story called Romeo and Rosaline, any more than it's a story called Juliet and Paris. So something is going to happen. But before it does, I actually have a favour to ask of anyone who feels in the mood to do this, which is, if you have time and you fancy it, I'd love you to write the poem that Romeo might be writing to Rosaline at this moment. Because honestly, he's a bit of a callow youth, Romeo. He thinks he's in love. He's just got a crush. He's got a crush on Rosaline, and he's probably in his room writing her really bad poetry. This is a play full of poetry. Those opening lines that I quoted you, two households, both alike in dignity. in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge, break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. That's a poem right there. In fact, that's a section from a sonnet, which is 14 lines long. And later on, quite soon in the story, when Romeo and Juliet meet at the party, they speak to each other in another sonnet. They speak to each other in 14 lines of verse. So Shakespeare's using poetry to get the feeling, the romance of love. So if anybody feels like writing a beautiful love poem or even a cheesy love poem from Romeo to Rosaline, you can send it to us and Tip will explain how. Now, I'm going to leave the session here and I'm going to hand over to Tip to wrap up. But of course, there's an awful lot more of the story to tell. And I'll be back next week to tell you a bit more. Thank you, Tip.
Brilliant, Kate. Thanks. One final question Matt Whiteman's thrown to is what do you think of the modern interpretations of Shakespeare? Can you give us a quick 30-second brief?
Yeah. Oh, Matt, I love them. You know that at the time when Shakespeare was writing the plays, theatre was so unbelievably modern. Theatre, as we know it now, had only been around for about 40 years. So the plays that Shakespeare was writing were experimental, contemporary, totally brand new, and no one had ever seen anything like that before. They were done on bare stages. There was no lighting, obviously, maybe some candlelight, but they were basically done during the day with no lighting. They were done with no set to speak of, just on a plain stage. And the costumes were just modern dress. They were just what people wore normally. The actors wore their regular clothes with maybe a crown or a sash or a bit of sheet even draped over them to be a toga. So that was all they had to show the world that they were in, even though Shakespeare wrote about ancient Rome, ancient Britain, other countries. Everything was just kind of indicated. So it was all modern dress back then and all modern settings. So
Right.
I don't really care.
Thanks very much, Kate. We could go on. We will go on for days and sessions. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to all the Portrush members, and that's from Steve Crockett and Portrush. Great to have you guys watching. And we've just obviously come to the end of our first program, our first workshop as such. So all I can say is what an incredible session. Thank you so much to Kate Beales for an incredible start to our Romeo and Juliet adventure. Please come back later, Kate, and enlighten us further, because believe me, I am enlightened and I want more. So from all of us then, a quick round of applause. Thank you very much to Kate Beales. Just as a reminder then, our sessions are run then from Tuesdays, or on Tuesdays and Thursdays weekly, 1100 to 11:30 hours. This will be one run weekly for the foreseeable future. Please, everyone, keep an eye on social media. We're on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter. And for all those people that want to write poems, the poem of love from Romeo to Rosaline, if there's a link below and you can actually get on that and email Alice with your poems, and hopefully we can interrogate them or get amongst them in one of our next programs as such. Also below, there's links to the RC and theatre productions you can watch, and other information on Romeo and Juliet. So I'll look forward to seeing you again, hopefully, if I get the turn to be a host again. So take care, be safe, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.